Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Marquette. We're so glad you're with us to stay curious. Today, beside me, of course, you recognize the handlebar mustache of our good friend Terry White. Terry, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Thanks.
Well, good to see you every month for almost every month for 2 years. You've been providing us your insight as what I call the garage manager of the shuttles there. You were over the pit crews.
Yep. So, yeah.
And we're going to reprise a little bit about where he worked, a few things about working there. But we've also got today uh, your questions. Didn't get that up early enough today. I thought I did, but I pushed the wrong button last night, I guess. But you got a question for Terry, and I've got a good one for him that was proposed by astronaut J.D. Bartow. Watching him talk out to Space Center this week is if the shuttle went off the runway or crash somehow, how would the astronauts get out? All right. And Terry's going to briefly tell us about that in a little bit here. But this is the last launch of OV-105, the beautiful space shuttle Endeavour. And you saw it from beginning to end, Terry.
Correct. Yep.
And did you think about that today or before we told you anything about it? These days run together.
No, with 135 flights, I don't think about all of them. So,
But 13 years ago was the final time that this beautiful spaceship went to orbit, went up to the space station with a very important scientific payload.
And it was going to be the last flight of the space shuttle program was STS-134. And then they agreed to go ahead and fly STS-135 because we had processed Atlantis to be a rescue ship. So we'd get it all ready to fly in case Endeavour had an issue. So finally convinced NASA that, okay, well, it's all ready in that. Well, just load it with all kinds of supplies and a small crew and take it up to the space station. And they said, well, we won't have a rescue vehicle. No, but they can stay on space station until we can bring them back.
Mm-hmm.
And so they agreed. So Atlantis then flew the last one.
Which was in July 2011. And this is May 16th, 2011 today. What a beautiful montages they came up with. Of course, Endeavour, spelled with the English O-U-R in honor of the British exploration ship
That discovered Australia.
It discovered Australia with
Yep.
Captain Cook on board. I wonder who was the captain of that, but someone out there in our war. Yeah, Captain Cook had the first voyage of the British HMS Endeavour. They've kept the OUR in there, as they did with Apollo 15.
Yeah.
And I think one of the uh, SpaceX crewed capsules is called Endeavour.
Okay.
There's another Endeavour out there, but a very popular name, of course, means a lot. First flew STS-49, as we're going to look here at this beautiful collage there. The cupola signifying it took the cupola up with on STS-130.
And I think Endeavour was the one that was chosen by school students. They had a competition to come up with a name for the new orbiter.
They certainly did, Terry. And as we look at this, every image of the shuttle you're going to see today is Endeavour. And I mean, that is one of the most iconic images of the whole shuttle era, taken during 127, its return. There you have all that keeps us alive, folks, from the blue down to the red. That's the thin blue line there. But boy, that is an awesome photograph that's been on covers of books and so forth. But our shuttles of the month of May, 10 wonderful shuttles, 57 astronauts flew, 5 of them were repeats. And there you see 49 with the little flags on top of the mast represent the 2 schools, one an elementary school and one a high school that got the, I think there's so many Endeavors they were drawn out of a hat.
Yeah.
That was President Bush 1, I think, wasn't it? 1992.
Yeah.
In that era in there. And just another way that NASA gets the public involved
Correct.
in your space missions there.
And gets the younger generations involved.
49 sticks out for the maiden voyage for several reasons. You have a couple of them on your mind. We didn't talk about it.
Well, Well, one of them on 49, I was down at the operations desk when we were getting it ready for its maiden flight. And a guy was standing there at the desk, and I had an Endeavour hat on. And he says, "Hey," he said, "where'd you get that hat?" So I explained to him that one of our quality engineers owns space shirts right outside the Space Center. And I said, then he makes the hats and that. So I said, just go by there and get it. And the guy looks at me and he says, "Well, I can't drive down there and get it." I said, "Well, how'd you get to work?" He said, "I flew in a T-38. I said, "Who are you?" And he pointed up to the plaque above the ops desk for the mission. He says, "That's me, Tom Akers."
All right.
So I explained to Tom that I would get him the hats and they'd be on my desk and he could come up and get them later. So
Love that story. Marty, I didn't bring my smart tablet in, so I'm not going to be able to read the comments or questions to Terry today. And you can handle that, please, sir. Yeah, Tom Akers did the first and only three-person EVA with Hebe and Akers, Hebe, and let me look it up here on the scroll here to be accurate. Thuet, yeah, Thuet was the other one.
and not just for the U.S. space program. No other
Right.
country has put 3 astronauts out on an EVA at one time.
Bruce Melnick, our friend, was on that mission there. That Brandon Steen and Chilton were the commander and co-pilot, and Kathy Thornton was on there also on 49, the maiden flight. So she might be thinking about Endeavor's last flight today. And in the month of May is the first and last flight of Endeavour, of course, separated by how many years there, Marty? 9 years apart. So, gee, in 9 years, uh, no, not 9 years, 19 years. Yeah, carry the one there. 19 years, it flew 25 times. So, it averaged one a year there, a lot better than maybe some of them did. A couple facts about it. We're going to talk about a couple things about it here.
It was the newest orbiter, but it wasn't the lightest orbiter.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Atlantis was a little bit lighter than Endeavour because of some changes they'd done when Endeavour was being built.
Orbital vehicles had a designation OV-105 was this one. And OV-104 was Atlantis, and 103 was Discovery. And then you got to really know your stuff.
Yeah.
Because Columbia's OV number was
102.
102.
Yeah.
And Challenger, the second of the fleet, was
099.
099.
It wasn't supposed to fly to space. That's why it didn't have a 100 series designator. So it was a structure test article. So it was STA 099.
So we're going to look at a couple things here. Let's see, what have I got racked up now? Oh, yeah, I wanted to ask you, of the shuttles of May, did any of them carry the shuttle door gunner?
Well, those would have been DOD missions, and we're not allowed to talk about
those
DOD missions.
That's what you know. There's a DOD patch there for you, Marty.
Yeah.
All right, and I didn't get to say hi to Marty Winkle there, but I was reminded of you, Marty, my co-producer working the Streamlabs board today, because Terry was saying about it's supposed to be the last flight, 135. And you're familiar with that from shirts, right? A lot of shirts were printed with 134, I mean, as the last shuttle on it, not 135. So you got to kind of look at it closely, right, Marty?
Yeah, because that shirt was printed initially prior to OV-10, prior to FCS 135.
Yeah.
That's why it wasn't on there.
Yeah, but you'll see some posters and shirts and stuff that thought they were printing the last of it, and then they stuck 135 in there in July, and glad they did. Let's see, this was the, we're going to talk about that launch here in a minute. I'll get you some stats out there, as we wanted to have a little fun with Terry there. There was a lot of gag t-shirts and patches and hats all the time, right? To
Yes.
keep them on their toes, keep them just in the game, sort of thing, right?
Yep.
Like any business there. But I mean, I swear the space workers seem to have more fun than about any group of workers I've ever seen out there.
And interesting, one day we had some Russians in OPF-1 going kind of touring around, and one of them was a cosmonaut. I don't know his name because I didn't actually talk to him, but he talked to one of the TPS technicians, and he liked the shirt that the guy had on, the shuttle shirt. And so the tech says, John says, "Hey, well, I like your shirt." So there on the floor, they both took off their shirts and traded shirts.
Oh, Jesus. Can't make that stuff up here. And Terry White is full of great stories like that. Go back and look at, just Google his name on our YouTube channel and Facebook also. You'll see some programs that we've done, had a lot of fun with. Let's show you a little bit about what we're talking about, the shuttle garages. Those either have taken the tour around the Space Center on the bus. They always go around the big VAB, and tell us about it, Terry, what to look for.
And they'll point out just west of the VAB it is Orbiter Processing Facilities number 1 and 2. They originally thought that those 2 hangars could handle the fleet of vehicles, but it turns out they couldn't. So later on, we built Orbiter Processing Facility number 3 and outfitted it to also service the vehicles from landing to roll out for launch. So, yeah, so we had 3 hangars, and like Mark mentioned earlier, they were the garage. So we got them inside the garage and deserviced them for flight, taking off hazardous commodities and that. So the majority of the people could come in the hangar to work. And then we started taking it apart from its last flight and removing whatever payload came back or all the interfaces. And then we started building it up for its next flight. So
distinctive of the stabilizer has a hole in the roof or the wall there to let it in. You can still see those. Hard to find pictures, really good pictures of anything in the 80s and 90s, even the 2000s at the Space Center, because you were not allowed to carry cameras around with you.
correct.
Everybody's got a camera with them today.
Yeah.
But it was forbidden, or people just didn't do it.
It was forbidden. So, we had contractors that were the photographers and that, and you needed photographs for closing out an area or different photographs for things while you were working, they would come take a photograph, but persons could not bring a camera into the facilities except on things like open house. So it was rare to get. And then eventually when they said, "Oh, well, we'll allow cell phones in," and I said, "No, we don't need cell phones in here." So, yep. Yeah, we had an issue that we thought cell phones could potentially set off some of the pyros.
Oh, sure,
on
yeah.
the vehicle. So
Yeah,
there was a lot of things that was banned from the building simply because of all the hazardous things that were in the building.
Yeah, I'd like to do an episode one time about all the waves going through us constantly from everything. Marty, we've got a question today.
Yeah, a question from Steve Yoakum. Harry, which payloads required the most OPF work by your teams?
With 135 flights, it wasn't the early days, but yeah, there was a lot, and I don't remember which one required the most work, but we basically had to take down all the interfaces, all the electrical and everything from the previous payload. We had to change around all the mounting hardware for the next payload, depending on what it was, because people couldn't understand if there was a delay in the payload. They said, "Well, put something else in there." No, you can't. We'd already put all the structure and everything in there to support that particular payload. So we were at the beck and call of waiting for the payload when it got there and then going through the testing. So they did a lot of testing at the payload facility to check it out. But then once it got it in the vehicle, then we had to do it again. So, yeah.
And something, my friends, to always keep in mind is these payloads and all the structures Terry's talking about inside the payload bay are designed for weightlessness. They're not designed to hold things on the gravity of Earth.
Correct.
And that presents a whole other set of engineering.
But they have to be able to support it while it's here. They have to be able to support it in the vertical position out at the launch pad. So some of the heavier payloads we could have put in the orbiter processing facility, but they wanted them put it in at the pad because they didn't want to move it around with all that extra weight in there when it could go in out at the pad. And then, then it had to withstand the rigors of launch and then deploy in space, and some of the payloads stay in there and survive the rigors of landing. So
good question, Steve. I'll probe him a little bit more. We'll try to isolate things because like Steve, I'm wondering, like the heavy payload that this alpha scattering device that was flown, that was and the gamma ray observatory was very heavy.
And some of those took up a lot of space. They took up the entire area of the payload bay, to within about 6 inches from the
Uh-huh.
forward and the aft bulkheads in the payload bay. So they were huge dimension-wise payloads. Others are more
Absolutely.
smaller, but extremely heavy. So.
Well, tell us about those DoD payloads and how you fit all those in there. You can't.
That is a concealed question.
Okay.
Or a concealed
Yeah, I heard
answer.
some of that DoD mission on 34 was kind of, that wasn't a 34's Galileo, but it was a tight squeeze in there. But yeah, there's
Well,
a lot of.
we had to change things because at first they said, well, you can't go upstairs. I said, no, we have to process the vehicle. We have to go upstairs. Well, don't look at the payloads. Well, okay. So,
Yeah, that
so we
was,
actually had to install curtains all around the payload bay that you could not.
Yeah,
see
Mikey
through.
Haddad talks about that
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
our payload
Yes,
specialist.
yeah.
That,
So as soon as we quit flying DOD, I pressed to get those changed to back to the clear curtains to help keep the area clean and that. But I said, from a safety standpoint, if someone falls down or something inside there, I said, if no one can see inside, they're not going to get any help to them right away. So I convinced them to go back to the clear curtains. So
interesting there. That's where they like shower curtains.
similar, but yes,
Yeah.
special film and that, but you could see through it. But yeah, we had to keep the payload bay and the crew module even cleaner than the rest of the hangar. So
Well, here's a special 360-degree photograph of kind of whirling around, which you'd see that's OPF on the reception desk there.
that's OPF-2. So that's where Endeavour was processed for its final mission. Was an OPF-2.
So I see little things there, like of course the American flag, love that. But then, as you turn to go in, you've got wipe your feet, and probably a little bit of security to get in there.
Yes, you have to scan your badge to get in, so you have to be authorized to go inside the orbiter processing facility.
Scanning your badges, that was kind of a breakthrough technology, maybe for businesses
Yeah.
back then. Huh?
Yeah.
There and then
And,
you get
a
inside.
a badge rack, so you had to put a picture badge in the rack outside. So if we had an evacuation, we could account for everybody that was in there at the time.
So is that the green in between these two pictures, or so on the wall there? But
The green thing that's about the center of the photo, no, that's an emergency eye wash.
okay.
Yep.
The badge, the picture badge station.
That would be on the outside.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's something
So
you
when
don't think about going to work. You take your badge off and put it in a slot. And of course, the people that were Apollo 1 caught up there who didn't die, but still were up there. That was a way that they knew they were there.
And we did when we went to the launch pad. There was a badge board out by the gate, and going into the launch pad to work, you had to put your badge in that, so that if there was an evacuation of the pad, they could account for everybody. And you couldn't go pick up my badge. I had to physically go up there and get my own badge. That's how they accounted for everybody coming out.
Sounds like something you wouldn't forget, or you get chewed out.
Yeah, some people left when we'd have an evacuation, and they would go, well, I'm going to go over to the cafeteria, and then you go get them and chew their butt out and get back. No, you have to wait till we say you can leave the area. We have to account for everybody.
There's another unique photo. What are we looking at there, Terry?
We're looking at the body flap taken off of the orbiter. So, yep, that's something that rarely happened at Kennedy Space
I
Center.
recall you swapped out one of the orbiter's body flaps.
We did. We had an issue with Challenger and some of the adhesive on Challenger that holds the tiles on, and it was actually the filling and fairing adhesive, but it was turning back to a liquid, and the waterproofing agent was causing it. So we had to remove over 4,000 tile right before we were supposed to roll out.
Oh, wow.
And so the body flap had a lot of that issue on there, and it would have delayed launch even longer. Well, Atlantis was in California, and its body flap was complete. So NASA opted to take Challenger's body flap, send it to California, bring Atlantis's body flap here, install Atlantis's body flap, and later on, after California had completed Challenger's body flap, when both Challenger and Atlantis were in the OPFs at the same time, we would swap them back to their original body flaps. But we lost Challenger before that ever happened. So
Challenger is lost with Atlantis's body flap at
yes,
the end there.
so the body flap that's on Atlantis out there right now is actually first flew on Challenger.
Oh, wow. I'm going to look at that in a different way when I see it out there.
Yeah, and one of my techs came to me one day and he says, I got a document I don't understand. And I looked at it, and it wanted him to remove the nomenclature tag from the body flap and put a new one on there. I said, no, that one is Challengers, you know, and most people didn't recall that. But NASA decided, no, we want to call it OB-104,
wow.
so we pulled off the old nomenclature plate, put a new one on there, which I didn't agree with, but it happened. So
Of course, the openings there for the
three
that's
main
the
engines,
aft,
yes,
three
yeah.
main engines.
and the structure is wide open. You know, that's the way it gets when it's going. And there's a lot of temporary platforms around it right there, because this, like I said, this was not a task that we normally did at Kennedy Space Center. So we weren't really geared up for it, so we had to come up with the right hardware to do it. So.
Marty's got a question for us, for you.
A question from Mark Usiak. He says, I remember seeing a video of a press conference once with John Young joking about firing up the APUs in the OPF. Was this done often or for special reasons?
It was not done often, but, you know, prior to STS-1, there was a lot of things we tested that was not normally tested later on in the program. But yeah, so, you know, it was capable of doing that. I mean, you know, prior to STS-1, we tested the actuators, the hydraulic actuators that move the elevons so many times that we exceeded their lifespan. So we had to replace the actuators before they ever flew and put more newer actuators on there and then start testing them. But we didn't exceed their lifespan. But yeah, so.
Good question. Thank you, Mark. And be seeing you in a couple weeks at the Astronaut Scholarship Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and one of the calls I used to get a lot was on night landings. People wanted to know what was on fire.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it was the APU exhaust, which you didn't see in the daytime, but at night when it's sitting out there on the runway after landing, you can see these flames shooting up on
right
both
in front
sides.
of the stabilizer.
Yeah, both sides of the vertical, and they go. So people will be saying, "Oh, what's on fire back there?" So nothing. That's the auxiliary power unit exhaust.
Well, as I recall, John Zarella reporting from that night scene there, you could hear it.
Yeah.
It was like a suction. It had a distinct rhythm to it, right?
Yeah.
In there. So that's outgassing noise?
That's the exhaust. Yeah, the
Exhaust.
three APUs, you know.
Yeah, there's a few times that, and yeah, you don't know what's going on there. And a lot of things are outgassed from a spaceship that you don't see.
Until we get it hooked up to the outside power sources and that, so it had to run on APUs. So.
Well, here's a beautiful picture I threw in that Marty he almost pulled the trigger on this being our green screen there, and I don't blame him. The belly, I've been told you walk around the OPFs and you go, where's the shuttle? And it's right there. It's like the tiles above you.
Yeah. So many people would come in there, guess, and they'd look up and said, oh, I thought we were going to see a spaceship. I said, it's right above you. Oh, we just thought you had an ugly ceiling.
The patina on this, the flow marks. When we've talked about looking at the belly of Atlantis a couple episodes ago, you said it was very something of very interest to the engineers, particularly on the maiden flights.
Yes, yeah, because it changed a lot of their what they thought was going to be the flow paths, because you could see the outgassing and see exactly. And yeah, when it was coming in, you'd see the streaks coming up the sides this way up there, and then on the lower surface, like he's talking about, you'd see the streaks coming back from it. So it told exactly how the heat was coming off.
Yeah, you see that pattern and very.
Because the vehicle didn't come in like an airplane would. It come in similar between an airplane and a capsule, and that so it would come in that type of angle.
Yes, as you see it come in, its nose is way up
Yeah.
as the belly and the wings are absorbing that heat there. So, is this a typical location to replace tiles? And I've been told that dark tile in the upper left is probably a new tile. When you see dark tiles, they're darker.
Yeah.
Does space stain them?
Well, the more they fly, they get grayer and grayer.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, you could tell by looking at them. And if you can get up close in that, I can tell you probably the number of flights on each particular tile.
What's the green tags hanging down?
That's indicating a discrepancy. So once quality or a technician had noted there was a problem there and they documented it, then they would put a tag on it so we didn't write up multiple documents on the same damage.
Okay.
So.
So someone on their shift sees that on their paperwork, goes over to it and fixes
Yep, yep.
it. Kind of cool. You dealt, of course, hands-on with astronauts. This is I'm trying to figure, is that this mission?
I,
Is this?
I think
Yeah,
so.
that
That's
is.
one of the
Yeah, that
Kellys
yeah,
in
that, that
yeah,
is this
yeah,
mission.
and
This is
that's the
Endeavor's last
lead
mission.
TPS engineer.
Uh,
That the young lady standing right in front of me is the lead TPS engineer for Endeavour.
Yeah,
So
that's Kelly there.
yeah. So after Columbia, we had to brief the crews on what they may expect, and you see him out there. I'm showing them a gap filler. You can see the gray material right in front of him, off to my left hand, right there. That's
Right.
one of the gap fillers that Robertson had to go pull out on Discovery's flight when he went underneath the vehicle and
Yes,
took out
right.
the gap filler. So,
Yeah.
but they had never been trained on what they might have to do externally in the way of thermal protection systems. So the engineer and I would go out there, and the crew, as part of their training, would come around, and we'd get them to see what it took to wiggle a tile, because all the tile can physically move. To experience touching a gap filler and that, which all of their career they'd been told, no, don't touch any of these, and now we were telling them, well, you have to touch these.
That's Mark Kelly, of course, who this is his fourth and last space flight. And then Gregory Box Johnson just had a birthday. He's beside him there with the gray hair. And then you've got Michael Fink is out of the picture, but you've got Greg Shamatoff. He's the dark-haired man on the left there. Feutzel, Drew Feutzel's in the background there. And that's the ESA astronaut, Roberto Vittori, on his third and last flight there.
And if you look up above their heads, you can see the belly of the orbiter.
Yeah, I do see that.
Yeah.
Now, how much into the flow, or was this a month before the mission launch, you think, or a
Probably
week, couple
this would be
weeks, or-
getting close to the end of the processing time in the orbiter processing facility. So they would do this during CEIT, Crew Equipment Interface Test, where they came in and they got in the crew module and hooked up things that they were going to hook up during orbit and that. They got the feel of the hand controllers and that, especially for the mission specialists that would be operating the robotic arm. They would make sure that we had the grips on there that fit their hands the best. And then the astronauts would do their own sharp edge inspection. So we would put them on what we call bridge buckets, but they were mobile platforms that went up and down in the payload bay and nose to tail inside there. And they would actually go and inspect all the surfaces to make sure there was no sharp edge that would damage a suit while they were out on a spacewalk. So they felt confident then when they went to space. Now the techs really liked that part of them, because all day long they were in this special bucket, them, the astronaut, and the QC, just riding along, taking their time, talking and inspecting. So captive audience.
Captive audience there. I was looking to see the this crew. This is the last time, that they all flew to space. Feutzel flew again on a ISS expedition, but here you're looking at the penultimate flight of the shuttle, the last flight for Endeavour. There's the crew, and right to the end, the NASA employees worked their butts off. And all last three flights of the three orbiters were all characterized as squeaky clean as they could be.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, Terry, I've told you this many times, you got your pink slip in your hand there. You got fired. You don't even know if 135 is going to be, 134 is going to be your last flight in May. Did they announce it before this flight took off that there'd be a July 135?
Yes, it did.
All right, so you knew it. So,
Yeah.
but still, you all out there that have lost a job and might be a little bitter about it, nobody threw any monkey wrenches in anything. Everybody had pride in their craft to the end, and I really admire that.
Even some of the techs, when they said, okay, we're in here, we have training for things and that to help you find a job when you get out. And some of them said, no, we're not going to that. We have a job. We won't concentrate on anything except the orbiter until the flights are over. Then we'll go out and seek other employment. So,
Wow, that's just an amazing thing. Well, there's beautiful Endeavour, the flags that were flown of each mission there on the pad, waving the red, white, and blue there on Endeavour and our American flag. It was an 8:56 a.m. launch, so a lot of early risers I know in your world. So that's the
Yes.
middle of the day for a lot of people there. But what a gorgeous launch! And I don't know who took this picture, but it just really it was obviously with a remote camera. You couldn't get that close, but on the left hand side is the steam coming out of the three engines, and on the behind us, our head, is the smoke from the solid rocket boosters. And guys, you just see the energy there. It's just an amazing photograph there to show all that energy going on there. Where were you at these launches typically?
Generally, I'd be right outside the orbiter processing facility
Okay.
because we're working on more than one vehicle at a time. So, I had no need to be out there. I could go to the firing room, but it required a necktie. So,
Oh, really?
I wasn't a necktie person.
You had to have a necktie?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Marty,
And-
did you have your necktie hanging off your door probably?
Yeah.
I never wore a necktie.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right, question there.
Hey, Mark, we have two questions.
All right.
First one's from Steve Yoakum. Are the streaks seen here from gap fillers?
What was it again?
Are the streaks seen here from the gap fillers?
Some
I
of the
think you're talking about underneath the
Yeah,
orbiter.
some of the streaks underneath are outgassing from the gap fillers, from the adhesive from the gap fillers and that. So some of them are outgassing from the penetration holes where we had to re-waterproof the tile. So you would see slight streaks coming out from them. So it was a various, but most of the ones were from the gap fillers.
Okay, second question from Mark Usiak. What is the record for the most flights that a tile flew? Were they replaced after a certain number of flights, whether chipped or not?
No, there was no set number of flights for a tile. Now, we took off tile, especially in the earlier days, to evaluate the structure underneath them and that. But, the orbiter maneuvering pods have the most flights on them. But Discovery has the most flights for a vehicle. And I would guesstimate about 85% of the tile, I know for Atlantis, 85% of the tile are original. So they flew all flights. So, we took them off for various reasons. Sometimes we would take them off, like I said, to evaluate. Other times we took them off for damage. And we took them off for access. So there were some areas that we needed to access the structure underneath them, like the orbiter's antennas and that. If we had to replace an antenna, we had to take off the tiles that were bonded over the antenna. So the antennas actually communicated or radiated right through the tiles, the blankets, and the frizzy. So
Yeah, there's a lot of, do a show on the antennas one day. I'd like to know a little more about that. I got my shuttle scroll here, Mark Usiak, to let you know that when we look at Atlantis, of course, it flew 33 missions. And if 85% of that tile is the original, that's really some good wear out of those tile. 125 million miles. OV-104 flew. And of course, Discovery had the most missions, 39, and then 28. Let's see, 39 for Discovery, 33 for Atlantis, 20. Then you go to 28 for Columbia, and 25 for Endeavour. So Columbia actually flew 3 more times than Endeavour did, and then 60, just 10 flights, of course, for Challenger on there. So the 135 flights. This was the 165th NASA crewed mission of human beings, and like I said, the 25th flight of Endeavour. The last non-U.S. person to fly on a space shuttle mission was Colonel Roberto Vittori of Italy on his 3rd flight there. So.
and I think at the end of Endeavor's STS-134, it had flown 299 orbits.
Yeah, good memory there. As I consult the scroll there, I found that on 299 days. Not
299
orbits.
days
you
in
meant
space.
days, yeah.
Yes.
4,600 orbits. 299 days. The leader, of course, is Discovery with 365 days and exactly a year. And
And Atlantis has a little over 300.
Yep, 307 and 300 days even for Columbia. So Columbia, Endeavour, Discovery, and 1 day short for Endeavour. Atlantis all had almost 300 days. Yes, a question.
Yeah, Gary Gerald's asking, was there ever any at the attachment point on the orbiter where it made it to the ET?
Was there any tiles on the attachment points?
I think he's talking about streaks. I'm not really sure.
Oh, there were streaks at the after the because the forward attach point is right at the back of the nose landing gear door. So one edge of that attach point actually is right there at the nose landing gear door, and there were streaks coming off there. Now, originally there were tile over the structure for the attach point, except for where the bolt is, but because of the vibration created by that explosive bolt, it was constantly shattering the tile, and they were slapping the edges together and fracturing the size of the tile. So we took off the tile and replaced them with the reinforced carbon that's just like the nose cap and the leading edge of the wing. It is heavier, but it would withstand the load. And the thing looks like a home plate. If you look at the shape of it, it looks just like the home plate in a baseball game. So
Very interesting. Great question, Gary
Yeah,
Gerald.
he's also asking, is there any damage?
damage to there was damage to the tiles around there. Yes. Yeah.
Until you put the
The
heavier
reinforced
duty-
carbon, we did not. We could repair on the leading edge of the wing reinforced carbon, but those were replaced. They had limited number of live flights depending on where they were on the wings. So, and we replaced the nose cone, the nose cap after a certain number of flights.
Hope you're enjoying this conversation with Terry White. We're talking about the last flight of Space Shuttle Endeavour, launched May 16th today, 13 years ago in 2011. That 13 years went by pretty quick, I'll bet.
It did.
It did, yeah. So we're going to look at the crew here, a stylized picture of the crew that they love doing there at the end there with Mark Kelly. There, of course, his twin brother Scott, also a Hall of Fame astronaut there. Beautiful launch there from Mike Killian. Mike, thank you for letting us share your work. A kind of an unusual launch photo there. Nice silhouette. Going up to the International Space Station as it looked, basically looks the same as it looked 13 years ago. To put this alpha magnetic spectrometer up there. This was a $1 billion piece of magnet, basically, that was going to look for cosmic rays. It would actually attract cosmic rays, a little understood element of our universe. And it was worthless on the ground, okay, had to be in space, and it had been built and everything to go up in the shuttle. And then it was a question of whether they were going to do it or not and had the money to do it. And that's why this mission really flew, was for this scientific instrument that is now attached to the International Space Station. Had it not flown in the shuttle, it probably would have had to wait 2 or 3 years to fly a Delta or other uncrewed
Yeah, and I
rocket.
don't know its weight and size. So, some of the things size-wise had to fly
Yeah,
in
it was
the shuttle
configured, yeah.
because it couldn't fly on the
Exactly.
existing.
Couldn't fit it in a
rockets,
fairing.
Yep.
So, and it's done a lot of science. In fact, they did it's been up there operating, of course, for over 13 years, and it is spacewalk to replace some elements of it to keep it going not too long ago. There's the patch with the atomic symbol there for this magnetic spectrometer. The symbol's in the middle of the cosmic rays. To describe cosmic rays, Terry, is the astronauts say when they're sleeping, before they go to sleep, they see little lightning streaks through their eye vision. And that is an actual cosmic ray going through their eyeball.
Huh.
And they come from stars that have blown up and other things. Not harmful in low doses like that, but still contain elements of the universe that we want to
Flight to
understand.
Mars, that would be a lot of streaks coming across
That's
your
right.
face. So,
Exactly.
yes,
Yeah.
for the months that it would take to get there. So
This is another thing to understand. Endeavour spelled boldly on the side of that beautiful stylized shuttle there. And here's all the missions, the 25 patches from up at the top, 49 at the bottom, 134 we're talking about. You're wearing a patch of 118 there that is, and I was looking at some of the more historic missions. Of course, the first element of the space station went up on Endeavour and STS-88. I always like STS-100's patch for it looking like a space helmet. It had didn't put together all of its missions here, but we will at a future date here look back on all of them there. STS-27 there with the black patch is the picture that we're looking at here very coolly. And of course, in the tribute piece of artwork, STS-30 took up the cupola there, and it's next to the last mission. And its rollout at Palmdale was April 1991. So almost 20 years to the day. It was ready to go to space. Look at how nice and polished and white and clean it is back then. Did it, a silly question, did these shuttles have a new car smell to them?
They did. Yeah. Yep. So, and then it's not complete because it's got some, the orbiter maneuvering pods are mock-ups. The forward reactionary control system is a mock-up in that because we had those hardware down here getting them ready. So, but they put that on there for rollout. And then when it came to Kennedy Space Center, there are things that was called field site installation that Palmdale was not authorized to perform, that we had to actually finish building the vehicles when they came here because according to the design guys, that work had to be done at Kennedy Space Center. So when I tell people, yeah, I worked the original build of all of them, they go, no, they were built in California. I said, yeah, but we had to finish them here, even though I did work on Columbia and Challenger in California when they were being built.
Interesting. A lot of pieces and parts fitting together here on our shuttle fleet. And we love sharing these stories with you all here because they're about the space worker.
Correct.
Who we consider at our American Space Museum national treasures for what you've done. Nothing's ever been done like this before, a reusable spacecraft of this magnitude. And there's some of the, I think that's the thermal protection people. I believe that's Gene Wright there in the black holding on the left of the Endeavour sign there. But such pride in everybody's craft. You did get to take pictures when NASA sent a cameraman out there.
Yeah, for some of them we did. I mean, not everyone got, but we would take them out there in buses and work groups and take them out to the pad, and they'd get to line up out there and get a picture taken. So
probably a very cold 50-degree day out there, the way everybody looks in their jackets and so forth. And so we go into the OPF and we look at the nose end of a shuttle. And we had a wonderful talk this week by astronaut John David Bartow, who flew once as a space scientist. 51F, I think, was his mission. And John David, then he got caught up in the Challenger disaster and didn't wait around. But we're looking, what are we looking at, those holes there, Terry?
We're looking just above the nose, and we're looking at, those are 6 of the thrusters on top of the forward reactionary control system. There's 5 more on each side, but that's what maneuvers the orbiter when it's in space. So these use hypergalls, which means a fuel and an oxidizer that need no ignition source. As soon as the 2 of them come in contact, they have an instant explosion. So you can see the ones right in the center there are larger diameter ones. The 3 up above them are a little bit smaller than that, but they all point in different directions. And when they fire that thruster, then it moves the orbiter, so you can move it forward, backward, left, right, rotate, end over end, whatever you need to do to maneuver it in that. Now, they use the thrusters also in the earlier days before space station had its own thrusters. They would go up and dock an orbiter to it, and they would use the orbiter's thrusters to reposition the space station because gravity was slowly bringing it in, so they had to return back to its higher orbit.
Now you can see the patina there. They're like cannons and noisy, I understand.
They are, yes. They say when they fire the big ones, it's like a large artillery piece going off.
So did you ever fire them in the orbital processing
We
facility?
wouldn't be around if we did.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that volatile? Huh?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah.
Huh.
So yep. So,
So
and they were
these engines
smaller
were
than the
cut-
ones on the side. Some of them are not much bigger than a baseball. But and those, they say you don't realize it in space when those are firing, because when the orbiter's in space, they're constantly having to reposition it to maintain its spot
Yeah.
that it's supposed to be in, and that. And talking to some astronauts that didn't fly much, they said, yeah, the smaller thrusters weren't anything, but the bigger thrusters, when they fired, scared the heck out of them.
Huh. What if the side of the ship was coming off there?
Yeah.
Well, J.D. Bartow is talking about training, and that if the shuttle, grab our shuttle model, or grab the big model there, the other one,
Yep.
or I'll hold the other one. You can hold the. If the shuttle's coming in here in our 3D model there, and it comes in and the wheels break and it hits the runway and crashes, and the astronauts survive. Have they got a wrench to get out that side hatch door? What do they get out of? And JD, explain this. You're going to explain it.
They have multiple systems, but the astronauts, they have a pyro window. One of the two upper windows that you see here are blue, windows 7 and 8. One of them is an explosive window. So when they do that, it jettisons the window out of the way. The astronauts climb through that, and they throw a rope over the side, and they slide down the side of the orbiter.
A rope. No, wait
rope.
a minute. You don't have a mechanical
Everything,
winch to
everything
the,
is as light as possible. Why would you take a heavy winch and cable and all that when you could just toss a rope and shinny down the rope?
Well, I guess you had to be in shape to do that, huh?
Well, the astronauts are in shape.
Yeah, all right, okay.
Okay. Now,
So everybody had their own rope?
well,
You think?
for me, I would use your rope once you got off the end of it.
Okay. But really, just like off the shelf, was it nylon or hemp rope?
I didn't install the rope, so I don't know,
Okay.
but it had a rope for it.
Had
But
to be fireproof for sure.
for emergency egress for the crash rescue folks, on the right-hand side, there was a panel, and in the earlier days, it had what we called the mouse hole tile. You can't see it on there. I doubt even you see it on this one. But one that was about this big. and
Mouse hole tile.
Yeah, and it was painted red. And what it is the firefighter would punch that, and it would open a small door. Once he punched out that tile, push a button, it would open a small door. And there was a lanyard that he would pull. So just like on an F-4 or an F-22, whatever, fighter aircraft or like that, there's a lanyard to deploy the window in that. So he would go out and pull that, and it would blow the window so that the firefighters could climb up on the orbiter and get them out. So
The mouse hole.
yeah. So later on,
Can we see that on Atlantis?
you'd have to look at the early days of the Columbia and Challenger, because later on they eliminated the mouse hole tile, and I think the number was 390-223-001, but they eliminated it and put it where the firefighter would have to use a screwdriver to take out 4 screws to open the panel.
Very interesting. I bet y'all didn't know that. So someone else is staying curious with a question, Marty, on our UCX family microphone.
Yeah, Tom Usiak is asking, what path did the APU exhaust take when they were activated in the OPF?
I don't recall, because that would have been a clearing the building when they did something like fire the auxiliary power units. So in the earlier days when they would have been testing that, it was I was a thermal protection supervisor, so there was no need for me to be in the building when they're firing the APUs. So
There, I had another picture here to show up there. A good question there, Tom.
yeah, you can see right
the
there.
wind is right behind you.
Yeah,
there.
you can see the red triangle right above my shoulder, and that is for the
red. Oh, there's the red triangle.
that's indicating that there is explosive for that window.
Okay. This was also ejection seat.
Well, Columbia had ejection
Yeah,
seats.
4 of
You'd
those.
have to look at this same
First
view of
4
Columbia
flights.
to see that. And we deactivated the ejection seats after the first 5 flights because there was only 2 ejection seats, and it wasn't fair to have more astronauts than you had seats for. So then when Columbia went back for its major mod In California, they actually removed the ejection seats. But there you can see where the handle is, the
Yeah,
escape
there's the
panel.
escape panel, seat
Yeah,
handle.
and that's where the mouse hole tile would be.
Very interesting there. And those panels would come out. Something
It's-
that you don't want to come out in space, of course.
Yep.
But
It's just like any military aircraft in that has, you got to be able to get them out, because I was a crash rescue specialist in the Air Force, and my job was to blow those things in a crash to get the crew out.
and somewhere tucked in there, JD said, JD Bartow, was the rope
Mm-hmm.
that you'd pull out and throw over to the side. There was some partial, I think the fire department used several, like Resolute. Some people built some shuttles that were used to
Yeah.
train on.
Yeah, there was one that sat out there in the weather till it finally
Yeah,
fell
right.
apart.
Yeah, that Resolute was famous for that out there. Marty, another great question from our group here.
No, I held up the comment sign, Mark.
Okay.
Dennis Scarborough is stating, some of us in the media had a chance to tour the inside of the space shuttle, and I believe the explosive cord to blow the window is located in the center dash between the front two seats.
Yes, you see it in that last photo. Yeah, see, it's right there. It's pointing down to the jettison handle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great. It's a great, good,
Yeah,
good
those
observation there.
Windows 7 and 8, those did most of the camera work while they were in space. They did most of it, had camera brackets all around that, but that's where they took most of the photographs back.
Mhm.
Now, window 11 that was in the center of the crew hatch was the best optical clear window.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out why they needed a window in the center of the hatch, because the astronauts were still in their seats after landing when we were up there getting ready to open the hatch. It's not like they were inside looking out at us and that. And if you're in space and somebody comes to the windows knocking, you're not going to open the hatch.
No, you're not. Like a little peephole right there. Who's there? Who
Yeah.
could it be now?
Yeah, one, you would lose your life support, but two, who's ever out there knocking, you don't want to meet them.
Want to give a shout out to Tori Varquette. She did this 3D model. Her Yaya Creations does a lot of 3D stuff on there. And thank you, Tori, for donating that to the museum. Good prop there to use. Well, little side view there from our Endeavour tribute there to talk about something that I knew you'd be of interest. Here is again an orbital processing garage with, again, every image here is definitely Endeavour. What are those hoses coming off of it, Terry?
The orange looking hoses, that is the life support. So coming in from the runway, we have to provide temperature control, air conditioning basically to the vehicle, but we have two spacecraft operators that took the place of the astronauts in the crew module, and they would like to breathe. So that's pumping the conditioned air into them. That's one of the things that this big truck hooks up to provide power and to provide them breathing air and that coming into the orbiter processing facility. And it stays like that until we get the orbiter in, spotted, and get it up to its maintenance height position so we can hook up at the T0. So there would be three hoses, one feeding the crew module, one feeding the mid-body, and one feeding the aft.
Great, sweet. No, this is not your county road crew replacing a truck tire. This is there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people watching this one guy work there.
Okay.
That doesn't sound like you.
No, but again, I'd have to see exactly when this was, what they
I
were
know.
what they were doing. But you have in an installation where we're bringing the orbiter in and spotting in that, you have a whole bunch of people. You have the orbiter handling engineer for NASA and for USA that's looking at it. You have the supervisor. You have a couple technicians. One guy in there with a sandy colored shirt looks to me like he's the move director. The one with the orange kind of striped shirt, he is a technician.
Okay.
But you have a whole bunch of people that put their 2 cents worth in on what's going on. So
Obviously, inspection after a landing there.
yeah, and this looks like it's an OPF-3. It's hard to tell. So
All right. And there, we talked with Frank Frank Norris, and I showed you Frank did a great job. He was an OPF guy. We used this in the show we did with Frank. Just interesting to see an OMS pod just sitting on a workbench
Yeah.
there. But they were always taken off for inspection.
Not always, but
Okay.
they were periodically taken off, and we would have issues with them. We'd have to take them off, and because of the hazards associated with them, the hypergalls, we
Yeah.
would take them off the vehicle, send them down to the hypergall maintenance facility, which was way out away from everything else, and they would work on them down there, and then we could still continue to work in the orbiter processing facility.
You see all
So-
kinds of structures everywhere. There's a couple ladders, just off the shelf ladders.
Yep.
There from Lowe's or Home Depot there. Just a very, you had different areas of the OPF. They're obviously larger inside than they look from the outside, for
Yep.
sure.
Yeah. So yeah, and
You had
and
a lot
the-
of, you had a lot of workshop space.
Yep,
so
and
forth.
the orbiter maneuvering pods, they had a lot more flights on them than even Discovery did because they were interchangeable. So we could take them off and put them on another vehicle. So one of the pods, maybe more than one, flew over 40 times. So it had more flights than
Oh,
an
that's
orbiter
interesting.
because it was interchangeable.
Very interesting.
Yep.
Just like the SRBs, the
Yeah.
4 sections of solid rocket boosters. They never probably ever flew the same 4 together in the same configuration for one reason or another. They fit well, but
But we felt they should have built spare orbiter maneuvering pods because
Yeah.
we would have to get one off of a ship and put it over onto another ship for a flight. Now we cannibalized basically for some of the stuff. One of the things we're always short of was cameras in the mid body. So when an orbiter landed, we got it in the hangar. One of the first things we'd have to do is get the cameras out so we could put them in another orbiter that was getting ready to fly.
very interesting. I love looking at these pictures of your work environment there. And we love looking at these pictures. That's Barat on the left, and that is hello there, Doug Forrest. But you didn't know you were going to pop up to there. I'm sure Doug's watching from California. He took this picture with our good friends that have donated quite a bit of money to us there, Barat and his mom and dad, Mal and Ram. And there, Doug Forrest is a great artist. In the background there is Endeavour. And she's covered with this peel-off plastic to preserve it. And in the background is the SRBs and the ET, actual real deals that are being constructed out at the California Museum out there. And this is Doug's work. That Marty's bought that piece, had it matted, and going out there and getting all kinds of astronauts to autograph. Isn't that a cool drawing of Endeavour? Looking at face on
Yeah,
there.
down the center lower part of that picture, you can really see the outgassing there from the thermal barrier that's around the edges of the FRCS. You can see the
Yeah, the
white streaking.
yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, he's done an excellent job. Just looked like the picture we showed a little bit ago there. So good work there, Doug Forrest. And thank you for always being curious and watching our show. This is what Doug sent me some pictures if you see any new ones out there. But there's one of the latest aerials of the Endeavour's been mated with the ET. Now they're going to build the building around it. All right. And that's going to look something like this. You have a friend out there that is watching this.
No, he
looking at
goes from out here to be the move director. He's the one that lifts the orbiter and puts it in place out there.
Who's that?
So, well, there's several of them from here that go out there, but yeah.
So this looks like a picture. It's not. And what you'll be able to do is the red structure there is different levels that you can go up. And you see the people at the very top looking down at the cockpit of Endeavour. And I've seen the Discovery on its wheels at Uvar Hazy, and can't wait to have this checked off my bucket list someday.
Yeah, the guy
Maybe
that's
we'll
in-
take a road trip, the three
Well,
of us out
the
there.
guy that's in charge out there keeps asking me when I got to come out and answer questions for him and that. And I said, well, are you going to pay for my airfare and hotel? He goes, nope.
Nope. Well, we got to work on that. Yes, somebody donate us and we'll make a road trip out there. I'm sure all the kinds of groups like Space Hipsters will eventually rendezvous out there at some point in time, but can't wait to look at it. Now we're going to enjoy, of course, we've enjoyed talking to Terry about all this shuttle stuff, and we're just going to kind of look back at some of the greatest hits, so to speak, of when Endeavour was involved in, some of the seminal pictures of the shuttle's 30-decade legacy. Not many of you see this picture, though. What was
Yeah.
going on here?
Well, we're moving one out and one in. So especially in the earlier days when we only had 2 hangars and 4 orbiters, we had to get one out of the hangar when we're doing maintenance on it and, and building up the payload, that we had to get it out of the hangar so one that was coming back from flight could go right into the hangar to be safed. And once it was saved and everything was right, then we'd take it back out of the hangar and bring the other one back in to finish it. So we were staging orbiters in the VAB on the ground floor over there. So we were over there working on them, but we didn't have the structure set up to do a lot of work on them over there. But that's why we built Orbiter Processing Facility number 3. Originally, it was supposed to be a major maintenance one. And then NASA said, no, we need to make it full scale. So we stopped using it and outfitted it to do everything, safe the hypergalls and that. And they went back to putting them out in California for their major mods. So, because we'd taken orbiter offline for 2 years and send it back to California for them to do major modifications to it.
But you got Endeavour on the right, I believe, and Discovery on the left. And Terry, describe what those yellow structures are on the payload bay.
Those are to support the payload bay doors. The payload bay doors are extremely lightweight. They're designed to operate in space. So to operate them here on the ground, you have to support them. So those are called strongbacks. And we actually bolt them to the doors, and then we use cranes to actually open the doors along with their motors and that. And then same thing to close them. So we also have strongbacks that we use out of the pad because we open the doors at the pad to install payloads out at the pad. So different configuration for vertical and horizontal, but those are actually what support the doors. A couple of strong techs could actually lift one of the payload bay doors. They're that lightweight. So
Just take it from the VAB or top of the OPF, or
and looks a
didn't
little,
have drones back then.
Nope,
folks.
looks a little bit higher, but it could have been taken from the helicopter.
You see
NASA
people,
helicopter, but yeah.
you see people in the parkway there. Marty might be standing out
because
there.
it
You
looks a
might
little
be
bit
standing out
higher
there.
than the 167 feet that the top of the OPF is. So,
Okay.
And
Classic picture, though.
yeah, and it's a little bit out of the way for the VAB. So
This is a very publicized photograph of Endeavour. This has got the Kibo Observatory in it, and a Dexter, the kind of stick figure looking robot that they stuck outside the ISS. But look at the payload bay doors over. You see Endeavour on the
and you can see the docking mechanism in that photo for docking to space station.
Right, yeah.
And you also can see the KU band antenna. All the antennas are located in the forward section.
right above your head.
In the under,
right
but
there.
right above my head,
Yep.
that KU band antenna actually deploys
That
once
has
the
to flop out like
once-
a one-arm
once the
spring.
payload bay doors are open, then they deploys the KU band.
We've got Cliff Watson enjoying this in his breakfast Friday morning in Australia, Pomona, Australia. Hey, Cliff. Lynn Feathers watching. Peggy Holbert.
Yeah, my
That's your
sister.
sister. Bennett Scar. Getting to know your family pretty good. Where's your wife on this? She's getting her hair done or something?
No, she's watching, but she doesn't log into it.
Bennett Scarborough's watching. Tom Celentano, thank you. Christopher Mick, good to see your name, Christopher. He's up there in Hudson, Wisconsin, doing great outreach there in science and astronomy. Dave Stange and granddaughter Mara. Hi, Mara. Hope you're enjoying the show. I got a wave up there. Mara's like 1 year old or something like that up there. And you're with Grandpa. You be good to Grandpa today.
Yeah, my
Tom-
grandkids finally realized that I don't get to wave at them just because they wave at me.
Yeah, right. Well, Tom and Mark Usiak, of course, our favorite brothers, are up there in Pennsylvania watching. Bill Whiting is here on the Space Coast. Thank you, Steve Jokums, for your great questions and support. Marty, Steve broke down all of the Saturn V segments. I'll email you that. That's out at the Kennedy Space Center, Saturn V Center, where they all came from. That'll make a great show one day, Steve. I'll be in touch with you about that. The Astronaut Files, of course, John Borelli's watching. He's a little disheartened because he's been down here for 3 weeks to see Starliner launch, and he had to go back to New York finally. So, but thank you for watching, John, and And we'll get together again next time you're in town. And Gary Gerald, harvest those Vidalia onions, brother. Get you and your wife Donnie down here. I want a thick Vidalia onion on a meatloaf sandwich. How's that sound? Some horseradish.
Sounds good.
Mwah, the best
They're,
there.
they're
So,
really good baked. So
they're really good. Yeah, there you go. Well, there's a great shot there that everyone's known for a long time. Of course, Endeavour did visit the Mir space station, as it's shown docked there by a Soyuz spacecraft that was leaving. What an iconic image this is, and we hope you've enjoyed that as our green screen. Got to show Endeavour landing out there among the alligators and so forth at the Space Center. That was its next to the last landing, 1:30. K Hires on that one. And there it is, a beautiful shot of it being serviced there on the runway.
looks like it's probably already on its way back. Yeah, passing the water right there. It's on its way back to the
you know
water
right where
processing
that's at, I'm
facility.
sure.
Yep, I've made that walk several times. So.
And then the final night landing of it there.
That's the most impressive thing when you're working landing ops. You're standing there and you know it's coming because you've heard the sonic booms and that, but they're not shining lights up at it. So you're standing out there alongside the runway with the mosquitoes and that, and here it comes right by you 200 miles an hour in the dark, and then right there it is in front of you. So
Very interesting.
because it has no lights on it.
No, yeah, right. Not even no lights at all.
No,
Not
like
even
an
a red
aircraft.
blinking light,
Nope, nope.
because it's not going to be in the atmosphere that long. And everybody's already been told, get the hell out of the way. A space shuttle's coming through this airspace here. And threw in a picture there to kind of a parting shot. Just think of the 173 human beings that crossed through that threshold. Many of them multiple times, of course, but 133 times a human being walked into that. Of course, this is in one of your OPFs set up there to look at it there, and the beautiful NASA panorama.
That's the number of people who went to fly into it.
Yeah.
But there's been thousands of people climb through that
Oh,
hatch to go
there
to
you
work.
go. There you go. That is a good point
Yeah.
there, Terry.
Yep.
Didn't think about that. Yeah, the thousands of workers, times that
And
workers
that's
walk
not in
through
the
there.
OPF because we had a totally different structure around it in the OPF. So that's got to be out in California.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's.
I'm
yeah.
looking at the ceiling there, and you would notice that's not an OPF ceiling.
No, that's not even an OPF structure because we had a platform that carried us right out to there and a diving board to climb in it.
What would they be doing out there with that?
Just getting inside. So
Mm-hmm. And the hatch is removed.
hmm
Yeah, they took it off the hinges
yeah.
there. So,
See, we lowered the hatch down, put a diving board, and then you crawled out on the diving board.
well, cool parting shot there. The Endeavour last flight, 13 years ago today, it went to space. Cupola was one of its major things. It's such a window to the universe, and every astronaut enjoys that. So, and I hope that you all have enjoyed Mr. Terry White being with us today. Thank you very much, sir, for I didn't get you prepared as much as I usually like to do, but if you enjoyed today's program, please like us on YouTube. You have to become a YouTube subscriber to comment, but that just entails you giving your email address, and I've never gotten anything in email from YouTube, so it's very safe to join if you want to make comments. But I know Hazel Banks is watching today, and she said that she wasn't going to join it, but she still wanted to make sure that I knew she was watching. Thank you, Hazel. That's our Apollo secretary
Okay.
that has contributed so much to this museum over the last 10 years. Thank you, Hayes, for all you do. Thank you, everybody, for watching today's show. It's a Thursday. Tomorrow, on Friday, I'm going to not look so much at Future Friday, but we're going to look at how art and space and NASA began 61 years ago with the flight of Gordon Cooper. And it was the first time that artists, not photographers, but artists were allowed on Kennedy Space Center property. The great administrator James Webb
Okay.
okayed NASA's first art program, and eight artists were out there we're going to talk all about that tomorrow. One
Good.
of them being Paul Callie, Chris Callie, our great partner and artist at the museum. His father was one of the first of the 8 out there. How much were they paid? What did they do? What did their artwork look like? Stay curious for all of that tomorrow. In the meantime, I thank my friend Terry White. He's got some women lined outside the door to give hugs to before they leaves the building. But no, buddy, thank you for all you do. You're going to be on vacation for a couple weeks, so enjoy that. It's a working vacation with your
Yeah.
family, I know, but you're going to enjoy that. And we'll have you back and talk about something about the shuttles of the month of June next time. So
Okay.
until we have you back again, Terry, thank you. You stay safe. And y'all think up some more questions like you did today for this great American national treasure, Terry White. Until tomorrow, when we talk a lot about art in space and how it all began with NASA's art program in 1963 and Gordon Cooper's flight of Mercury 7. Until then, I'm Mark Marquette saying I can't wait to see you in our museum to bridge the space between us.